This is a video about a really cool new comic creator, Zoe Thorogood. Over the past year or so, I've read her books, and I've really enjoyed seeing a younger voice in comics. Of course, there's a lot of younger people making comics on Twitter or Webtoon, but I haven't seen many people around my age, if we're being honest, break through the zeitgeist of the comic industry. Not only has she won a literal Eisner Award, but she's also broken through with writing, like in the ongoing Life is Strange Forget-Me-Not series. So, let's get into comics rising star, Zoe Thorogood. The impending blindness of Billy Scott truly took me by surprise. Usually when I'm reading through the entire works of an author, I can see the rough edges and imperfections, but because of how raw and emotional this book is, it all comes across as just extra flavor as you're reading it. Like the title suggests, this book features Billy Scott, an artist that has suddenly started to go blind after getting her big break. This book covers the trauma that Billy goes through, as well as the adventure she goes on to finish her gallery paintings before she goes completely blind. I truly love the cast of characters Thorogood puts in Billy's way. While Billy starts as an introvert that can't even talk to her roommates without having a panic attack, she slowly transforms into someone that treasures her relationships and life as a whole. Throughout the story, we really see the mantra of life sucks, and that's okay, come through for every single character. Every person in this story tries to find a little glimpses of happiness, and I think the tearjerker ending made this one of the best debuts I've ever seen from a comic creator. Rain is a story initially created by Joe Hill in his novella Strange Weather. It didn't take long for Image to get David Booher to write the adaptation and Zoe Thorogood to take over the art duties. The premise of this horror-ish story is that instead of raining, you could have needles from hell that come down and kill you. The emotional beats here between Honey and the rest of the side characters are actually really great. While loss is a prevalent theme throughout the series, it gets pretty brutal and isn't afraid to show you just how far people will go to defend or avenge their loved ones. Like pretty much everything Zoe illustrates, the art looks incredible, and you can see how her style is a bit cleaner on a book like this as opposed to her more personal books. This is only a 5-issue series, and it ends on a pretty dubious cliffhanger. That being said, I'm not too crazy about the writing or the plot twist at the end, but the art is definitely a treat from start to finish. Alright, this is the big one. Many people, including myself, started reading Zoe Thorogood here. This is her own autobiography, and this book ruined me. Honest to God, I was doing the sad Charlie Brown walk for like a week after I read this. This takes place after Zoe Thorogood decides not to kill herself. Zoe spends the next 6 months making this autobiography as she recounts what her life was and is like after going through that and living with depression. While this initially started as her documenting her day-to-day, she quickly switches perspectives multiple times from when she was a young child, to when she was in high school, college, and then to present day. Constantly unsure if she'll be around in the future, she wonders what the point of it all is. In part of this book, we see how Zoe accepts that Billy Scott was at least a little bit based on herself, and she comes to realize who she is as a person. Listen, I get that a major point of this book is that this wasn't really supposed to be relatable, but it's worth mentioning that I don't think a cute cat poster saying "hang in there" actually ever helped anyone through a mental illness. There's so many times that while reading this that I was just dumbfounded how Zoe could perfectly verbalize shit that I've been feeling for over a decade and just now started to deal with. Like the constant battle between fighting your darkest thoughts and also calling yourself a narcissist for thinking you're special enough to be worth someone's time hits really deep, and basically just wants me to yell at Zoe to get the fuck out of my head. The roller coaster of emotions she goes through, from being depressed, to excited, to feeling hollow, to laughing with your friend, is something that more people go through than I think she truly realizes. This book is incredibly personal for her. It's her autobiography after all. But the fact that so many people were able to feel touched by her experiences is really worth something. This book was nominated for a variety of things and received critical acclaim. It was nominated for multiple Eisner Awards in 2023, and Forbes listed it in their Best Graphic Novels of 2022 list. For such a young upstart, Thorogood made a lot of waves very quickly. While the emotional context of the story is incredible and is very hard-hitting, the art in this book, as well as the writing concepts, are truly a treat to read and enjoy. There's so many different art styles present, as well as different mediums used to create the images. Honestly, there's so many examples in this book that have jaw-dropping pages that make me think, how do you even begin to script that? There's not much I can say other than please read this book, because it's genuinely incredible. And if you've ever struggled with anxiety, depression, or any other type of mental illness, you might find something to love in this. But just as a warning, there is some pretty heavy content in there, obviously, so trigger warning and all that there, but just be aware of that. The end of this book has a great page that says, "This book was not supposed to exist." But I'm happy it does. Well, we're going to be taking a complete tonal shift as we go over the most recent piece of Zoe Thorogood's work, Hack Slash has been a long-standing pulp series that has traded hands a bunch. The elevator pitch for Hack Slash is basically to imagine Camp Crystal Lake, but instead of a final girl, we have a final girl that is perpetually hunting down monsters, otherwise known as slashers. The entirety of Hack Slash really feels like an early 2000s story, coming from the plot beats, to the style of writing, to even just how serious it doesn't take itself most of the time. This pulpy action horror book was handed off to Thorogood starting in 2023. Back to School features Cassie Hack. She joins an all-girls school of badass slasher fighting monsters. Oh, and Vlad is there too. The art is awesome as per usual, and the story shows Cassie finding her own family as we explore her backstory. And as a longtime Hack Slash fan, I started the series being like, hey, where are all these cool characters in the other Hack Slash series? This is a prequel after all. But regardless, this is probably the funniest Hack Slash has been. I'm a sucker for the Gen Z / Newgrounds type humor in all of Thorogood's work, but this one really feels like her just being unhinged and just being funny. This includes anything from a hentai-obsessed student summoning a tentacle monster, to jokes about being sexually attracted to mannequins. It feels really nice to watch Thorogood have a ton of fun with one of her comics. Don't let that fool you though, there's still plenty of gut-punching page turns to be found here, mostly later in the story. Do you remember in my Saga video how I mentioned a really cool page turn that was incredibly sad and changed how we all thought the story would go? Well, in here we have a single page turn that recontextualizes the entirety of the last 20 years of Hack Slash, and it had me like... Seriously, this was a ton of fun. I can't wait to see what else she does next. Alright, that was us going over some of the most standout of Zoe Thorogood's work. I truly think if she keeps up to this trajectory, in 10 years or so, she'll be looked at as one of the greats. She's really able to nail down on some of our most dark emotions and has incredible art to back that up. Her art style is so evocative and is never afraid to break the mold of the traditional 9-panel grid. Well, what did you think? Do you have a favorite book from Zoe Thorogood? Let me know below. As per usual, more videos are coming your way soon. I've been Jared, you've been wonderful, see you next time.